Hey y'all, welcome back to Right at the Wire. Well, we're going to do something a little different than we normally do for our sequence postings. I'm going to give you today the pick four and the pick five for Tampa Bay Downs on Saturday, Sam F. Davis Day. And then at the end, we're going to give best bets and value plays of the seven races that we're going to cover. This will be races 6 through 12. And we'll start with the pick four, which is races 6 through 9, that has three stakes races in it. And it starts with the Minaret, which is an ungraded at 100,000, run at 6 furlongs for 4-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. Taking a look at this one, our Harper Rose is very logical in here, I think. This is a horse who demonstrated some nice ability on the Florida circuit, particularly at Gulfstream. And at the end, I think this one just sort of ran out of gas, just really needed a break. The last couple were not very good, and I think that was really the issue and may have gone a little too high in class. But back in the ungraded ranks, I think is a good place for this horse. Should be all alone on the lead, and then it'll be just a catch as catch can type of thing. I think that Harper Rose is good enough to take them all the way, but I think there's a couple of little classier ones in here that perhaps will negate that. Nick's Style to me is the pick to win this. She scratched out of a graded stakes at Gulfstream a couple weeks back, and I think that to run in this one, and I think that makes a lot of sense. It's certainly an easier spot. Would have been up against it a little bit over at Gulfstream, but I think here can sit just off of our Harper Rose and is just good enough. I think it has plenty of ability. Bill Mott is very good at placing his horses, and I think Nick Style is a very logical win candidate. Just to talk about a couple others, I've always liked Opus 42 as a horse. It is interesting that they're cutting this one back to sprints, has normally been running at routes, but if you look, maybe hitting the wall a little bit there, so perhaps cutting back, trying to repurpose the horse, find an angle, find a place for her. I think this is a good enough spot. I think his route to sprint I've always loved as an angle, and I think this is one that can certainly factor in the race, has enough back class to do so. A couple of horses that will probably take a lot of money that I'm a little down on. Dazzling Blue, for all accounts, looks like a horse who should win this race, right? But here's the problem. Go back and watch a couple of her races. Her last one, she had every chance to win the damn race and could not do it. Just kind of sat back, and I almost think this horse has second-itis. I'm pretty close to believing it because she hasn't won in a while. And just watching that last one was just so content to run with the girls and not take command and win at a short price. So you can't like Dazzling Blue going into this one, even with a little bit of class relief from prior efforts. So I'm going to use Dazzling Blue under only. Mayuchia, kind of the same thing. I think this horse has some pretty good talent, but I think is a little too comfortable finishing in the money as opposed to winning, and that's why I'm going to keep her back. So to me, Nick Style is the definite choice to win this race, and with a little bit of emphasis on our Harper Rose, but I think Nick Style can run her down in the Minaret. Next race is a maiden special weight for the pick four, leg two. It's the seventh race on the card, running 1 mile and 40 yards for 3-year-olds. And I'll just say right off the bat, not very imaginative here. I'm just going with the trainers that always win maiden special weights first times out. That's Chad Brown and Todd Pletcher. I've got one little note. I'm just going to, Candy Town is moving from turf to dirt, but had showed enough ability in the last race to indicate to me that the pedigree says that dirt should be fine and could very well win this race. I don't see why not. I'm going with Van Ginkel for Chad Brown because his barn is just red hot right now, and we know what he can do with first-time starters. Tab looks solid. Everything points that Van Ginkel is capable of winning this race first out. Same thing with Weekends and Whiskey for Todd Pletcher. Another firster with good first-time starter percentages. Tab looks good. Just another one at 2 turns who can win this race. Todd Pletcher, 19% at 2 turns. So either one of those look to me like the prime choices. We'll throw in Maruvi. I'm not sure this one really wants to win, but I do like what I've seen from the prior races, and I think is kind of beaten chalk, though. That's a little bit of a turnoff, but I think Maruvi's one to include. Now, a lot of you are going to wonder, why am I leaving off McCorvey? Really high, fairly high expectations, pretty regal pedigree, being by Songbird and Curlin, but I don't see enough to get excited. And being by Bill Mott, first time starter, it's negligible whether or not that he'll fire. Probably is going to be a decent horse, but I'm just not going to take him first out. I just don't see enough to get me really excited about him. And the price is going to be incredibly short. So I'm just kind of playing it conservatively here and just going with the guys who fire on first time out, and they both look. Weekends and Whiskey or Van Ginkel both look very capable, as well as Candy Town with a little bit of interest in Maruvi in a maiden special weight. Third leg of the pick four is the 8th race. It's an optional claimer for $32,000. Non-winners at 3 lifetime, run at 1.125 on the turf for 4-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. This race to me is really, it's ultimately to me a choice between 2 horses, Lucky Combination and Runaway Diva. I did like Runaway Diva's effort last time, but I'm going with Lucky Combination. I like the back class better than any other horse in here. Second off the layoff for Christophe Clement is a good angle with the Rod Ortiz in the irons. I think there's a lot of things to like, and I think has a bit of a class edge over the rest in here. There's a couple of horses to talk about. Seat at the Table is certainly a horse who's improving and getting better, but needs to get faster. That's really what it comes down to. Lucky Combination has a pretty big speed edge over Seat at the Table, and but is one to watch, and I think probably has an outside chance of winning this race. Well, it has to take a step forward, but probably more likely for underneath. And then you've got a couple of the Sweet Laura and Victoria's Dancer. I think are capable of getting underneath, but they seem more interested in that than they do in winning lately in particular. So Victoria's Dancer, the last race, was just too dreadful to be believed, and I think can run better than that, and you'll probably get a price now. The real wild card in the race is Siempre Elegante for Chad Brown. This one hasn't run in almost a year and is not coming up for the tag, which is a good sign. And perhaps this indicates that better things are on the way for this one, and it's just sort of a primer. You'll see more prominent trainers like Bill Mott, Chad Brown, Todd Pletcher. A lot of times before they put him in a stakes race off a layoff, they'll put him in these type of optional claimers. This horse is, on her best day, is certainly good enough to win this race without a doubt. It's just the layoff that concerns me more than anything else. In your sequence betting, I probably would be a horse you'd want to include, but I want to wait and see before I get real excited about. So to me, the prime choice to win is Lucky Combination based upon back class, and I just think is a better horse than most in this race. The last leg of the pick four is the 9th race. It's the Suncoast Stakes, ungraded at $150,000. It's an Oaks prep, run at 1.40 miles for the 3-year-old fillies. And you take a look at this one, and certainly Her Laugh is a horse that I know a lot of people are going to be excited about, and probably would be the favorite here. But to me, that last race was just too easy. It's much the same as like Guns Loaded winning the Mucho Macho Man. The pace was just so dawdling. It was just such an easy race. Stepping up in class, coming into the next effort, you just don't think they're going to get it that easy again. And I don't think that'll happen here for Her Laugh, especially with Chloe in the race, coming off a maiden score. Probably not good enough to win just yet, but it will at least be keep the pace honest. And I think that compromises her last chances. And again, it's really just a matter of having it so easy in the first race and now having to step it up. You've got Lacara in this race as well, who is a horse I really like. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile was a bit of a disappointment for sure, and maybe she doesn't want to quite go this long, but I'm not going against Mark Casse. His barn's going too well right now, and you get Dylan Davis in the irons, and I think this is the kind of field that she can work out a trip. And if she puts her best foot forward, I think she's just as good as any of the other horses in here. So a horse I certainly want to use. But I'm going with Dancing Magic. This is a horse who's progressing nicely, and I really like the turn of foot in the last race. Being by Good Magic, I don't think it's going to be a problem. Stretching out to 2 turns, and has a really good post position in the 2-hole. Should be able to sit right off the leaders until it's time to fly. And Dancing Magic, my pick to win this. Italian Soiree is a horse I've always liked from Mark Casse. And I was high on going into the Breeders' Cup, and it was a disappointment, albeit on turf. But this one has shown decent dirt form going back to the second she got in the Adirondack behind the Queen's MG. You can say what you want about the Queen's MG right now, but I think this horse has some talent. And probably coming from the back or mid-pack is probably not the best place to be at Tampa for sure, but I think is good enough to rate in the money here. And if they do go bonkers on the front end, could pick up the pieces late. But Dancing Magic, the pick in the Suncoast. So now we'll finish up with the last 3 races that are part of the Pick 5. Obviously, the Pick 5 starts with race 8. So we've already covered 8 and 9. This is the 3rd leg. Race 10, it's a maiden special weight for 53,000, running a mile and a 16th on the turf for 3-year-old fillies. And this is a kind of an interesting race in that you've obviously got a pretty heavy favorite. Oh, and incidentally, I apologize for not having the odds listed for the first 4 races, but I recorded it yesterday, and we didn't have them out yet. So I'm sorry about that. You'll just have to refer to it. Sometimes it's better to handicap without the odds, though. In fact, most of the time it is, because you just pick the horses you like the most, and then if you get an overlay, Tube City, right? So anyway, looking at this race, certainly early speed, Tampa turf is something you want to think about. And lying by omission on paper would make a lot of sense. But I'll tell you, if you watch that last start, you can't like this horse. Had every chance to win it and got nailed. Had an easy lead. And that really surprising for a Chad Brown. You don't see that too often. This is a horse that hasn't, is progressing to a certain extent. But I don't think warrants the 2-to-1 price, really. Certainly can win this race on the front end. Don't think it's going to be bothered a whole lot by Pediatric Princess or Whirl of War. Mona L may give some pressure, but Mona L's another one. I didn't like the last race at all. Had every chance to win and couldn't pull the trigger. So to me, the front end horses here are pretty vulnerable. So that leaves us with portfolio duration. Chad Brown, first-time starter, Flavian Pratt, what more do you want, right? Okay. And, it's very logical to win this race, without a doubt. But why is she debuting at Tampa? That's really the only question mark that I have. Certainly, Chad Brown's barn's clicking on all cylinders. Flavian Pratt, there's a lot of things to like. Pedigree looks good. Tab looks good. No reason to go against this horse. It's just I have that lingering thing about why debuting at Tampa. That's really all. So, that said, let's go against the grain. Let's try to buck the trend, and let's go with Ticking Time Bomb. Time Blonde, rather. The 12 horse. 15-1. When I initially handicapped this, without the odds, I thought would be like the 3rd choice. And 15-1 is an absolute scream. This horse hasn't run on turf in a while, but did get a second at Kentucky Downs, which is not easy to do. First time out of the box. So that and the dirt form hasn't been bad, and I think has shown a little bit of talent, and I think is worth taking a shot here. Why not? Vicky Oliver, not one of my favorite trainers to be sure, but she does win on occasion. And I just got a sneaky feeling about this horse. I can't explain it any other way. Nobody really knocks me out except number 8, Kaya. I loved the turn of foot in the last race, but really wasn't running against very much. And I think, demonstrated that certainly maybe there's better to offer, and getting a little closer to the pace may help. It's just, this is a speed favoring track. That's really the only thing that detracts me from putting Kaya on top. But this is a horse at 20-1. I think it's an excellent value play and certainly has a shot. But we're just going to try to buck the trend a little bit and go with tick and time blind. But portfolio duration, very logical as well for Chad Brown. So now we come to the featured race on the card, and that's the Sam F. Davis Stakes, ungraded at $250,000. It's a Derby prep, 11th race, running 1 mile and 1/16 for the 3-year-olds. And we take a look, and right off the bat, John Hancock is certainly a horse we want to be thinking about because he does come from Brad Cox, and he was a fairly impressive first-time maiden winner. But also, I'll note that, as I have in every post, these Brad Cox maiden winners are not doing it around 2 turns the first time. And it's not a good angle for Brad Cox. I think he's 1 for 16 now with maidens going into a stakes race around a route of ground for the first time. John Hancock didn't beat much in that field. And so I think it's illusory. He looks a lot better than he really is. And at 3-1, I honestly don't want really any part of him. And I'd like to throw him out, but in this field, he probably can hang around if he can learn to rate a little bit. To me, he's an under-only type of use, and I'd rather not use him at all. Dr. Ruben M, to me, is kind of interesting because he's had a number of races at this distance or around 2 turns. And that may be the ticket. That may allow him to hang around in this race, particularly if John Hancock sputters and Gatekeeper just isn't good enough. So to me, Dr. Ruben M, not a threat to win this race, but I think he can stick around and factor in the pace and maybe even can grab a minor share at 12-1, worth including. And incidentally, we do have an individual posting for this race, so if you want a little more in-depth analysis, you can find it there. Treaty of Rome, to me, is the pick to win. I was not that high on him in the Mucho Macho Man. I think he's more of a turf horse, and I still do. He's got high action, but hey, he's running well on dirt. He has the progression that you love to see from a 3-year-old, class rating improving as the race rating does. And so he continues to improve as he steps it up, gets a little bit of class relief here with another step forward, sitting just off the leaders. I think he's the pick. He's got the pedigree to do it. Owen Almighty is a pretty classy horse, but I would have liked to have seen a more impressive effort in the Pasco last time, coming off the bench at 3. He did win the race, though he was rightfully disqualified. But you've noticed that as the distances have been getting longer, he seems to have lost a little bit of zip, and I don't think he's a 2-turn horse, and that's really my big objection with him. I think he's classy enough to stay in the mix, but at 2-1, I don't want him as a win candidate at all. Poster is by Munnings. That's always going to bother me about this horse, but he surprised me in the Remsen. He ran a really nice race. I don't know how much he beat, but it was a nice time, and that final 1/8 of a mile was at 12 seconds, which is pretty damn good. He seems to me more of a grinder, and being about mid-pack runner, I think the track is a little bit against him here, and that's really my objection aside from his pedigree. But I think he's one that we can certainly include for underneath, particularly in this field. Smokin' Boy is very interesting. Now look, he comes from Puerto Rico. I'm not delusional about that. But go back and watch his last race, which is available on YouTube, by the way. Now, he didn't beat much. There's no way that was a decent field, but boy, did he have some nice acceleration. He made a move before the turn and just blew by that field to win easily. He's got to have some talent. He's got the pedigree for 2 turns. He just came off of a nice workout, and he's trained by Jose D'Angelo, who knows how to handle these type of shippers. So to me, Smokin' Boy could be a big surprise in this race, and I think he's won at 20-1. I think you absolutely have to use, if for no other reason than to put underneath. But Smoking Boy, very intriguing in here, but I like Treaty of Rome to take the Sam F. Davis. Last leg of the pick five is an allowance, 36,000 for non-winners at 2 lifetime. 12th race on Saturday's card, running a mile and an eighth on the turf for 4-year-olds and up. And you look at this one, and I'll tell you, the thing about this race that is rather interesting, you got a lot of horses who aren't really keen on winning. Really, that's the thing that sort of bothers me. Why Not Me would be pretty logical in here, and I think he's a horse you certainly want to use, but last couple races he's been just shy, and it looks like he has trouble getting over the top at the allowance level. But I think he's one you certainly want to include, particularly when he's up and near the pace. I think that's obviously a good place to be at Tampa. Sharif Ali is a bit of a wild card. He's never run on turf. And has been pretty decent on synthetic. They've been trying to get him on turf to no avail, but now getting him on, he might be able to get something going. And at 15-1, I think he's certainly worth a gander here as a bit of an X factor. And again, in a race where a lot of horses have trouble winning, Noble Factor is one that looked pretty good last time, and I think it's logical that if he can take a step forward or build off of his last effort, certainly could win this. So he's one you want to include, especially at 10-1. Factor analysis for Chad Brown. The particular appeal to me is it's Klarovich Stables. That's Chad Brown's A-list client, and so there'll definitely be some expectations here. Has shown, every bit that he belongs here, and I think if he runs his logical race, he can probably win it. But I'm going to go with Isan, or Asan, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Safi Joseph and Rad Ortiz in the irons. Safi Joseph's 21% second time with a horse, and he got his career high Brisnet figure in December, his first start with Safi Joseph. So better things are expected, and I think they may come. He gets the trip. Then I think he's a very logical contender in here as well. I just like him for that reason a little bit more than I do factor analysis. These, other than in the stakes races, these Chad Browns who are here, you just have to wonder why they're at Tampa and not at Gulfstream, where his better stock usually is, and that's really the big issue more than anything. But factor analysis, certainly a horse to consider in what I believe is an extremely wide open race. Really, the main thing is just that, who wants it is really what it's going to come down to. So we'll take our shot with Asan. So we'll take a look at our tickets. First is the pick 4. This is races 6 through 9. We're going to single in the first leg in the Minaret, and I think that's a good single for Nick Style. Looks head and shoulders above, and I also like doing that because we're either out or we're still alive, one or the other right off the bat. Leg 2, race 7, the maiden race, we're going to go with 1, 3, and 6. Leg 3, race 8, we're going to go with 6, 8, and 10. And then finally in the Suncoast, we're going to go with 2 and 6, but I like 2 a little bit more. So that's an $18 ticket at a $1 base. Then we'll look at our pick 5, and obviously we've got 8 and 9. We can spread a little bit more for the pick 5 because we're going to single Treaty of Rome, as you can see, in the Sam F. Davis. So in race 8, leg 1, we're going to go with 6, 8, and 10. And then we'll add the 3 in for race 9, leg 2 in the Suncoast with 2, 3, and 6. And then leg 3, race 10, I think that race certainly needs a big-time spread. We're going to go with 7, 8, 9, and 12. We're going to single again Treaty of Rome in the Sam F. Davis, race 11. And then in race 12, we're going to use 10, 11, and 12, and a really wide open race. But I think the more prominent horses are just maybe a little classier, and I think that one of them will get it done. I just didn't see a long shot from any of the other local horses, let's call them. So that's a $108 ticket on a $1 base. And I think it's definitely there's some value to be had. So if this one we can get Treaty of Rome home, we got a pretty good shot at getting a pretty nice payout. So now let's take a look at some best bets and some value plays for races 6 through 12. So let's take a look at our value plays and our best bets for Tampa Bay Downs on Saturday's card, February 8th, for refreshers. The best bet to me is Nick Style. I just think has a class edge over that field in the Minaret, and would be my single in the pick 4, as well as some of the other sequences we'll get to in a second. Followed very closely by Treaty of Rome, by the way, I think is another pretty good bet. But Nick Style to me looks really obvious. The long shot is Dancing Magic in race 9 in the Suncoast. I liked what I saw from this horse, and I think getting 8-1 is an excellent price, and I think he's going to win the race. So certainly want to pay attention there. For our value plays, Kaya in race 10, I think is a pretty wide open maiden race in many respects. Not wide open, but I mean there's cause to try to go against the Chad Browns, I think. And Kaya, to me, I really love that closing kick, and if it can get set up, you're getting a nice price. Ticking Time Blonde, I think, can win the maiden race outright, but you're getting 15-1. That's another excellent value play and should be in the money regardless. Let's throw Smokin' Boy in there at 20-1. I think that price may drift up a skosh. And again, I think this horse has talent. How much talent, it remains to be seen, but has an outside shot and certainly can get into the money, and that's where the best use might be. And then, of course, Sharif Ali in the 12th race. Hasn't run on turf yet, but has the earmarks that maybe this puts this horse over the top in a race that it's hard to find a horse who really wants to win. And I'll just reiterate, value plays are not necessarily horses we think are going to win, but at prices will fatten up your exotics and your sequences. So these are horses that you want to think about in those terms. In our sequences, as you guys know, I don't like to do doubles unless I have a single. So let's take races 6 and 7, and we're going to single Nick Style in the Minaret, and then we'll use 1, 3, 6, and 7. If you want to throw in the 8 horse, I can kind of understand it, but I think it's going to be an underlay, so I'm just won't do it. So, but I don't blame you if you do. Then it becomes a $5 double at the minimum. And then in race 11 and 12, I think we can do a couple. We're going to single Treaty of Rome in the Sam F. Davis, so that would be our first leg. And then because race 12 could turn out pretty chalky, we'll do 2. We'll Dutch a bit, so we'll do 10 and 12 with the 2, and then we'll do 2 with 3, 7, 11, hoping we get the second one in for the value, but. I think we definitely want to leverage, because if it comes up 210 or 212, it's going to be pretty chalky, and so we want to bet a little heavier there. Then finally, we'll use a pick 3. We'll do races 9 through 11. We'll go 2-6 in the Suncoast, and then we'll go 7, 8, 9, and 12 with the 2 anchoring in the Sam F. Davis as a single. And hopefully, with any luck, we can get quite a few of these home and have a nice payday. So that's a lot of races. That's a lot of discussion. But I hope our analysis does help you with your own wagering strategy. And I wish you the best of luck as always. And certainly, if you do like content like this, please like and subscribe. And we will continue along the Derby Trail, and we'll have additional postings. Next week, we've got the Risen Star and the return of East Avenue that I know we're all anxiously awaiting. So it should be a fun week of racing at the fairgrounds next week, so be on the lookout for content like that. That's it from here. I'll talk to you soon, and until then, be well.